Welcome back to our ABC 13 exclusive, Your Voice, Your Vote Town Hall, with Attorney General candidates Jason Miyares and Jay Jones. Jason Miyares, welcome.
Great to be here.
Why should voters re-elect you as Attorney General?
Well, I said when I ran for this office, I wanted to take the Attorney General's office back to focus on protecting Virginians. When I took office, our murder rate was at a 20-year high. Our violent crime rate was at a 30-year high. Our addiction deaths were the highest ever recorded. And I wanted to work with law enforcement. And that's exactly what we've done as the people's protector in the Attorney General's office. We've launched so many different programs to go after repeat violent offenders. We've dropped our murder rate. We've dropped our violent crime rate. We've dropped our addiction rates. And so Virginians are safer today than before I took office. We're proud of our job as the people's protector, protecting Virginians every day.
Jay Jones, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Why should voters elect you as Attorney General?
Well, look, we are running this campaign to ensure that Virginia is put first. We want to make sure that we are protecting from the excesses and overreach of what you're seeing in Washington, and so that our healthcare, our jobs, our livelihoods are put first here in Virginia, and that we have an Attorney General who's going to prioritize that and make sure that every Virginian is being represented by this office to the fullest extent.
All right, I want to talk a little bit more about law and order. You do have a record that you say you're proud of regarding public safety. What specific actions did you take to keep more Virginians alive today?
Yeah. So what we did is we launched something called Operation Ceasefire, in which Lynchburg and Roanoke are both part of that. What we saw was a small subset of repeat violent offenders were committing so much of the violent crime. Roughly 5% of felons were committing over 50% of the violent felonies. So we wanted to go after these repeat violent offenders. I took assistant attorney generals in our office. We embedded them also with our federal partners as well. We brought these cases, sometimes in state courts, sometimes in federal courts, going after this small subset of repeat violent offenders. The numbers have been remarkable. Statewide, our murder rate has dropped a third after this 20-year high, double-digit drop in the violent crime rate. Just here in the city of Lynchburg, we have seen a 50% drop in the violent crime rate and a 50% drop in our murder rate since 2021. And so we know that it's working. We know working with law enforcement and making sure we serve in that capacity, and then also went after the dealers. That's been a huge part of what we've done as well. More Virginians are alive today, as I say. We have gotten prosecuted enough fentanyl off our streets in Virginia that would have killed close to 7 million Virginians. That's the incredible work we've done in the Attorney General's office, reversing those trends and now making Virginians more safe today than when I took office.
A public safety plan to address crime, illegal guns, and child safety. How do you plan to do that?
Well, we worked very extensively with state and local law enforcement officials, community leaders, and other stakeholders to put together a plan that reflects the needs of our communities across Virginia, so that we're deploying these resources in ways that meet the challenges that we're seeing, whether it be to protect our children, to get these guns off of the streets that are harming our communities and harming our young people, and really make sure that we're putting people who have done bad things behind bars. So we're going to deploy the resources of the office to make sure that we're working in conjunction with every interested party to make sure that we are prioritizing public safety and keeping Virginians as safe and secure as possible.
I want to stay on that topic for a second, because drug addiction death rates, you tout lowering that as a victory for Virginia, yet 8 out of 10 drug overdose deaths involve fentanyl.
Correct.
What more can you do about that?
Correct. Well, the good news is where we were versus where we are today. I was able to stand with Governor Youngkin in the DEA national headquarters to be able to announce that Virginia was not top 10, not top 5. Virginia was the #1 state in the entire country in the drop of addiction deaths. It was more than double the national average. That didn't happen by chance. We went on the supply side, we went on the demand side. And on the demand side, we went after these huge pharmaceutical companies, some of the largest in the world, that about 25 years ago, they came to Virginia and they treated Virginians like we were a chemistry experiment. They went out in the coal fields and they pushed OxyContin to so many unsuspecting Virginians. They got caught in a cycle of addiction by accident. They went from OxyContin to then heroin and now fentanyl. But part of my job when I say we're the people's protector is also hold big corporations accountable when they act in a way that hurts Virginians. We filed some of the largest, most aggressive lawsuits we've ever seen in Virginia, some of the largest settlements, over $1.5 billion. That money doesn't come to my office. It comes back to treatment. And that was our message on the demand side. We wanted Virginians in that cycle of addiction with a very simple message. Asking for help is not a sign of weakness. Asking for help is one of the most beautiful, bravest things you could do. So we wanted to deal on the demand side. And on the supply side, we aggressively went after those dealers. As I've said, we prosecuted and got enough fentanyl off the streets that would have killed close to 7 million Virginians. That's why we're the #1 drop in addiction deaths since I've taken office. It's been an incredible record of success. More to do and a long way to go. But I think, as we were told by our federal partners, Virginia really is the model of tackling addiction. We're proud of the work, and I cannot commend my partnership with Governor Youngkin. First Lady Suzanne Youngkin have been great partners in this endeavor as well, raising the awareness of addiction.
As you know, it impacts so many people. It just doesn't matter what the socioeconomic background is. At the same time, as you know, your opponent says that you never prosecuted a criminal case. How do you respond to that?
Look, I've spent my career as a trial attorney. I love being in the courtroom. I love arguing and advocating on behalf of people. And as Attorney General of Virginia, that's my job, is to put them first. My opponent fails to do that. He continues to prioritize Donald Trump. He continues to prioritize letting Washington run over us. We deserve an Attorney General who's going to protect Virginia, protect our resources, protect our interests. And I'm looking forward to doing that come January.
When it comes to abortion, that's a big headliner, not only for Virginia, but for the rest of the country. I mean, what's your position, especially on late-term abortion?
Well, I've always supported a woman's right to choose. It's something that is very important to folks here across Virginia. We have a constitutional amendment that is working its way through the process, and I look forward to defending that once it gets passed by the General Assembly in January and passed by the voters next November.
Okay. Drug addiction death rates. The current AG touts his record, saying that he is helping to lower those death rates, a victory for Virginia. He says, what would you do if we were elected?
Well, when I was in the General Assembly, I was a member of the Opioid Abatement Authority. We have always prioritized lowering the deaths from drug use all across Virginia. We need to use the resources in the AG's office to get into our communities to help stop these problems on the front end, and we'll do that. And we have a proven track record of doing that, and I look forward to putting that into practice as the next Attorney General.
Immigration policy and enforcement. You favor state and local cooperation with federal authorities to deport those here illegally and committing crimes. Recently, and you've seen this, I'm sure, ICE agents have targeted migrants who gathered at places like Home Depots and scooped them up. Do you approve of those types of tactics?
Well, we got to first also look how we got here. We had 8.2 million illegal crossings in the last 4 years prior to the president taking office. That is the equivalent of the population of 32 U.S. states. It was the largest human migration the United States has ever seen in 249 years of our history. And what has happened as a result is we've seen several of these, what the categories that they are primarily targeting are two categories of individuals. People that are here illegally that have committed crime, that are ended up in our prisons, and then also 1.4 million people, illegals, that have been here, have already had a immigration hearing, and they've already been in front of a judge. They have been ordered by the judge to deport, and under the Biden administration, even though they have been ordered to deport and leave the country, they did nothing. And so you have, those are two overwhelmingly the categories of what is happening, going after illegal immigrants that are committing crimes and the 1.4 million people that have had that deportation hearing, they've had that moment in front of a judge, and they've been told you need to leave and they haven't left. So that's the category. Anyone that's here illegally that is using a fake Social Security number and applying to the Social Security Administration, that is at least 2 felonies, if not 3 felonies they've committed right there. And so, listen, we're a nation of laws. I'm a child of an immigrant. I'm the first child of an immigrant ever elected to this position. But my mother did it the right way. She got a green card. She came here after fleeing communist Cuba. And so that is a big difference. We are a nation that's very generous. We allow 1 million legal immigrants a year. But what Americans don't like is to feel like people are cutting in line, getting around the system, and then breaking our laws. And those are the individuals that they're trying to hold accountable.
It's interesting that you did bring up birthright citizenship, and you said you did come here. Your family came here the right way. Yeah. As a birthright citizen, how do you square that with President Trump, who wants to roll back that constitutional
Well, I want to be clear. My father was an American citizen. I was born in the United States, so there's never been any question of that. But what I would say is there are some legitimate legal questions on both sides. Ultimately, the Supreme Court's going to make that determination because there's legal scholars on both sides who have a different interpretation. I welcome that. I welcome that interpretation.
When it comes to immigration policies, you criticize the current Trump administration, their immigration deportation policies. What would you say should be done to control or solve our country's illegal migrant situation?
Well, look, Republicans have had full control of Washington for the last 7.5 months, and they have nothing to show for themselves as it relates to getting this problem under control. In Virginia, we want to support our state and local law enforcement officials who are trying to do their jobs to execute the laws as they're supposed to be. We don't want any federal overreach, but we've also got to protect civil rights and civil liberties here in this Commonwealth as well.
What about the deportations that you're seeing right now?
Well, look, I think, again, you see Republicans in Washington have failed to address this problem. So the issue lays at their feet. We will do what we can here in Virginia to use the Office of Attorney General to support and enforce the laws on the books. But I look for Washington to solve these problems, and then we can come in and execute as we have to.
Give us a specific way that you think that states should work with federal governments, let's say ICE agents and so on, to help with this process.
Well, look, I think what I have heard from law enforcement officials across this Commonwealth is that they're looking for some clarity, right? You're getting conflicting orders, whether it be from the federal government or from the state government, and people just want to make sure that they're able to do their jobs. And look, I want to support law enforcement. I want to make sure that they have the tools and resources that they need, and we want to protect from federal overreach. One of the things that I am deeply disappointed with is our Attorney General's failure to step up and push back on the excesses and overreach of what's coming out of Washington, and this is no different.
All right. Prosecuting criminal cases, you take a shot at your opponent, Jay Jones, having not prosecuted a criminal case. How many criminal cases have you prosecuted?
Well, I started off my career in the Commonwealth Attorney's Office in Virginia Beach early on. Our office has been one of the most aggressive. But yeah, my record with Jay Jones, my experience as a prosecutor, Jay Jones is asking Virginians to hire him to be the top prosecutor in the state. He's never prosecuted a single case in his day in his life. And the best predictor of future performance is past performance. When he was in the General Assembly, he voted consistently against law enforcement, against victims, and with felons. This is an individual who's advocated for no cash bail, which is an idea that sounds as dumb as it really is. It means that if I'm a serial rapist and you pick this serial rapist off the street and you arrest him, he's right back on the street. It means they cannot hold him. He voted against a 60-day mandatory minimum for repeat wife beaters. He voted against 12 months for somebody, an adult, who goes on school property and sells drugs to a child. He voted to end the mandatory reporting requirement of sexual assault in our schools. He voted for the Ralph Northam early felon release program that has released over 9,000 felons back on our streets, sometimes with decades on their sentence. And just our numbers from 2023, 49.8% of them have already been rearrested. So every chance he's had to side with the law enforcement and with victims, he's chose to side with felons. He is the most left-wing candidate ever to run for Attorney General. He should be running for Attorney General in California, not Virginia.
Let's talk about that specifically, because there are some executive orders that you disagree with coming from the Trump administration. How would you attempt to even block any of that?
Well, look, there are folks who have been doing this work across the country. Democratic attorneys general have been suing the administration to protect their state's resources, their state's livelihoods. When Virginia doesn't step up and join these lawsuits, we are left behind. And Jason Miyares has done that for the last 7.5 months, whether it be federal workers, healthcare, education. Time and time again, he's had the opportunity to put Virginia first, and he fails to do so because he's too weak to stand up to the president. And as Attorney General, that's your job, is to protect the interests of Virginia, and I will always do that.
Okay, let's talk DEI for a second. The Board of Visitors dissolved UVA's DEI program. Would you make a move to try to bring that back?
The Attorney General is supposed to protect and enforce the laws as they're on the books, and we're supposed to represent universities all across Virginia. I've not heard anything from the Attorney General about how he was stepping up to protect UVA, to protect George Mason, to protect VMI, and I'm looking forward to doing the job, right? We're elected by people across Virginia to protect our interests, and he can't do that. He refuses to do that. He fails to do that, and that's why we're going to go win in November.
On the issue of abortion, would you back any effort as far as abortions is concerned to make abortions more restrictive, make it more restrictive in this state?
Well, I mean, my record, I've never shied away the fact that I'm pro-life. Now, I think Governor Youngkin's measures on a 15 weeks, which with 15 weeks restriction, with exceptions of rape, incest, threat to the mother's life, is reasonable. That's very different than my opponent. My opponent says abortion anytime, anywhere, up until the moment of birth, even after you know the sex selection of the baby, paid for by the taxpayers. That is a very, very different position. I remember when Bill Clinton said he wanted to make abortion legal and rare. That's very, very different than Jay Jones's position, which is anytime, anywhere, up until the moment of birth, paid for by taxpayers.
Would you make a move to appoint new attorneys to that board?
Well, we want to have talented people in this office. We want to make sure that we're deploying our resources to meet the challenges of Virginia. We want to make sure that we are protecting our higher education institutions. I will tell you that when we fell from number 1 to number 4 in the business rankings from CNBC, what kept us at number 4 was our education system. And when you see this assault on our higher education system, it only means that we're probably going to fall lower in those rankings, and people aren't going to want to come to avail themselves of our wonderful public universities.
Okay, let's talk the Office of Civil Rights, including consumer protection. You mentioned that. How bad is it a problem with price gouging and what you say is artificial inflation of prescription drugs?
It's something that we hear about from folks all across Virginia, affordability and the cost of living and making sure that people can support their families in these challenging times. And we have been woefully underserved by the Attorney General, who fails to prioritize the needs of folks across Virginia. Again, joining these lawsuits to stop the tariffs from Washington that have crushed our regional economies. It's a really simple thing to do. And he can't get over this basic hump of putting Virginia first and stepping up to the president. And that's what I'll do as Attorney General. We'll always make sure that Virginia is represented, that our interests are protected. And to me, this is the issue of the day. And we have a plan to push back on this stuff, to use the price gouging statutes, to make sure that we're holding big pharmaceutical companies accountable, to make sure that people's pocketbooks are protected.
Give me an example, other than what you just mentioned there, that you think the current Attorney General is not doing in this regard.
Well, look, there are so many examples. Just a few weeks ago, when the Trump administration was pulling back funding for K-12 and higher education institutions, the Attorney General's office did nothing. And there are other attorneys general across the country. Look at Jeff Jackson in North Carolina, who sued to pull that money down. We are owed these resources. We're owed these funds. It's a really simple task to go and get that for us. And he can't do that because he's too weak to stand up to the president.
On DEI and ending DEI programs, you supported the decision to end UVA's DEI program, correct?
Let me be clear. I mean, they are illegal clients, so I have to be I cannot reveal attorney-client communication. This is what I've said publicly as far as any state agency, and I would say any private corporations. Quotas are illegal under federal and state civil rights laws, period. Reverse discrimination is illegal under federal and state civil rights law, period. Just because you may choose to cloak something as DEI and call it DEI and label it that does not mean you get to wave a magic wand and something that is blatantly that's reverse discrimination or a blatant quota suddenly means that federal and state civil rights laws don't apply. That won't apply in the private sector. That doesn't apply in the public sector either.
Okay. I want to talk a little bit about marijuana. You can legally grow or possess a certain amount in this state, but not sell it. Would you allow the sales of marijuana?
Well, that's an issue for the General Assembly, and we get to execute and enforce the laws as they pass them. I am sure that when the session convenes in January of 2026, this will be something that they address. But until then, we can only do what the laws in the book say. And when we get elected in November, we'll come in January and see what we got and what the General Assembly does going forward.
When it comes to gun control, obviously Democrats and Republicans don't see eye to eye on many things, but there's probably ways to form consensus. Do you favor any new gun control laws?
Well, I'm proud of my record from the General Assembly protecting communities and voting for common sense gun safety policies, one gun a month, red flag laws that have really had a tremendous impact on our communities. As an assistant attorney general, I sued the largest ghost gun manufacturer in the country, and we put them out of business. So this is something that I'm very, very familiar with. And again, this is a big part of our public safety plan, is to get these illegal guns off the streets. And in contrast with my opponent, who really doesn't seem to have any care about all of these weapons flooding our communities, we want to make sure that people are safe and protected. This is an issue we hear about all across the Commonwealth, and that's why it's a priority for us.
Well, let's talk specific about the red flag laws. I mean, what would you like to see changed or adjusted or amended in that regard? I
think the red flag laws passed is great. It's got to be enforced and used by localities and law enforcement officials at the local level. And I think when you've seen it in practice, it actually has had a lot of success. And so we'll work with state and local law enforcement officials, including the local Commonwealth attorneys, to make sure that the laws that are on the books are being enforced and used to protect our communities, to keep us safe. And again, it's all about using all of the tools in the toolbox and using the resources in front of us. And I'm excited to do that and work with folks all across Virginia to make sure that our communities are protected.
Real quick on civil rights. Your opponent says that the AG's office has an Office of Civil Rights, but it has been hollowed out. How do you respond to that?
First of all, that's a flat-out lie. We have the same number of attorneys working there as the day that I started. And in fact, this shows you how little homework he does for the office he's running for. My office received the largest civil rights settlement in the history of the Attorney General's office on housing discrimination. So when we say the people's protector, we take that very, very seriously. That includes protecting people's civil rights. It's absolutely a role, and we have a fully staffed civil rights office that does incredible work.
Anything specific, triggers, anything like that from the manufacturers that you think needs to be changed as far as the law is concerned?
Well, when the General Assembly comes back in January, they might address some of these issues, and I think we've got some really great stuff on the books for us to use Again, as an assistant attorney general, we really took out the largest ghost gun manufacturer in the country. You will see that a lot of crimes are being committed with these untraceable and unserialized weapons. We've got to lean in and we've got to make sure that we're getting those out of our communities. Big part of our public safety plan. And again, looking forward to actually doing the job and keeping our communities safe, not just talking about it like the current attorney general does.
All right, term limits. Virginia's governor is limited to one term. Should the attorney general also be a one-term office?
Look, I think that you've seen over the years Virginia has a quirky system. It's something that I think we're all very proud of. If the General Assembly decides to change that, that's in their purview. But until then, I'm looking forward to winning in November and serving out a term that's going to be incredibly successful alongside future Governor Spanberger and future Lieutenant Governor Hosh.
When it comes to marijuana in this state, I mean, you can legally grow it. You can possess a certain amount of it, but not sell it. Allow sales of marijuana, you think?
I think our current policy in Virginia is an example of left-wing legislators pushing probably a very misguided policy. And now, whatever major area you go into in Virginia, oftentimes you could smell the marijuana just walking down the street. And so they have set up, and this is what Jay Jones voted for, up to an ounce of marijuana, no fine, up to a pound of marijuana. Anybody in law enforcement will tell you a pound of marijuana is an enormous amount of marijuana. It's the same fine as you get for walking a dog with off a leash. And anything over that is possession with intent to distribute. The regime that Jay Jones is supported for is, this is the current law in Virginia. You could be a police officer at a stoplight. You can look to your left, see two underage children drinking a bottle of Jack Daniels. You have probable cause to stop the vehicle. That same officer could be at the next stoplight the very next day, see two underage, under the age of 21, two teenagers with a window down, smoking marijuana. Odor of marijuana is clearly there. They do not have probable cause to stop the vehicle. That is a misguided policy right now that's ultimately making us less safe.
When you go out and about on the campaign trail and you talk to the people out there, what seems to be their major concerns that you're finding?
It's affordability, it's cost of living, it's how the craziness in Washington is impacting their lives. And that is to a T everywhere we go, not just in sort of urban areas or suburban areas. We were in Botetourt County just a few months ago, and they are very concerned about whether their hospital is going to be able to stay open. Without the federal resources that have been propping that up for so long, those folks are going to have to go hours and hours away for health care. Folks are really concerned about how this one big bill is going to impact their health care status. More than 320,000 people stand to lose Medicaid coverage here in the Commonwealth. That is a real life and death issue for people. And so we are really concerned about people's bottom lines, people's livelihoods, protecting their resources and their values. And that's why we've got to have a change in this office to be able to stand up to what's happening in Washington to put Virginia first.
My last 30 seconds. Do you favor any new gun control laws?
What I favor are the policies that work. And the policies that work are going after repeat violent offenders that are using guns in the commission of a felony. That's what our office has done. Very different than my opponent, who has voted consistently against enhanced mandatory minimums. I'm a big believer, I'm a numbers-driven guy. The policies that have actually lowered gun violence are the policies that go after repeat violent offenders, indict them, prosecute them, get them off the street.
Real quick question, 10 seconds. Virginia's governor is limited to one term in office. Should the attorney general be limited to one term as well?
No, I mean, I actually don't think our governor should be limited. I think our governor should be allowed to run for re-election. That has to be a constitutional amendment. But I think the voters have great wisdom. I'm honored to be able to ask them to rehire me to continue to protect them, because I think our record of keeping Virginians safe, more Virginians are alive today because of the policies we instituted in this office. We look forward to continuing to be the people's protector for the next 4 years.
Attorney General Jason Miyares.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Pleasure to be with you.
About a minute left to go. What do you do as an attorney general to even impact that health care situation and those concerns that you're talking about?
Well, again, you sue to make sure that your interests are protected. Other attorneys general from across the country continue to push back on the overreach and excesses of Washington. We'll join those fights so that we can have our share and get what we need. I don't want to see 7 rural hospitals close here in Virginia. I don't want to see people yanked off the Medicaid rolls. I don't want to see our school systems funded at lower levels. We deserve all of these things. And for someone to stand idly by when your job is to step up and fight for us, you're telling people right now that you don't want to do the job. I know that we have what it takes to go get the job done, to put Virginians first, to step up against the craziness and the chaos and return ourselves to normalcy. And again, I think we have a real opportunity in November to send a message, not just to Virginia, but across this country, that we are better than what we've seen over these last 7.5 months.
Jay Jones, thank you.
Thank you very much, Pat.